Joining me now to discuss the latest on the case, the senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. So were you surprised by this partial verdict coming out?
Well, to me, it just means the jury's moving along. What they've said is that we've reached a verdict on 4 of the 5 counts, and I didn't hear them say what the judge is expecting or waiting for. We're hopelessly deadlocked on count 1, the RICO count. And that's why he sent them back to keep deliberating, because until they say we're hopelessly deadlocked, the judge is not going to stop the trial. Nobody's going to move for a mistrial. The defense won't move for a mistrial until they hear those words, we're hopelessly deadlocked. And so the judge did the right thing by saying, go back and keep deliberating. That's all he can do at this point.
And so what's next now?
Well, they'll keep deliberating. At some point, they'll say the words, we're deadlocked or we're hopelessly deadlocked. And the judge will read what's called an Allen charge or a dynamite charge. It says, if you can't reach a verdict in this case, then we may have to retry it, we'll start over at great expense to the government and the defense, and just kind of push them along, let them deliberate just a little bit longer to see if they can break that deadlock. If they can't, then he'll declare a mistrial on the count 1, the RICO count, and then accept the verdict on the other 4 counts. Whether it's guilty or not guilty, we don't know, but accept those verdicts, and that'll be the end of the case.
So in a situation like this where the jury possibly is deadlocked, could be like the conversations could be like within the jury?
Well, it depends on the split.
Okay.
So if they're split 11-1 one way or the other, then it's probably pretty intense. If they're split down the middle, then you got polarized sides, and it doesn't, they're probably not at each other's throats like it would be if they're split 11-1 or 10-2, where you've got a small minority of people that are holding on and taking intense pressure from the others. Let's go home. Let's get out of here. He's guilty. He's whatever. That's where it can get pretty intense.
Can you explain what the RICO charge is, what it entails, what it means?
So RICO is a form of conspiracy, if you will, but it's a broader base because it goes against companies. And in this case, they're alleging that Sean Combs used his companies to commit crimes in the kidnapping, arson, drugs, sex trafficking, the 4 I can think of off the top of my head. If they can prove 2 of those in a 10-year period, 1 act or 2 acts in a 10-year period, then they can convict him and his companies of RICO. And if they convict that, then they can go after those companies and take all of the assets. Now, you remember that Sean Combs is around a billionaire, as I recall. That's a lot of money the government can seize from him and put him in jail for life.
So you named a few of the things, excuse me. The arson, I feel like, was taken out, though, right?
That was the attempted arson,
okay,
not the arson. All of the attempts were taken out by the government, and I think in a strategic move to keep the defense from arguing they could not prove these attempts. If they can't prove an attempt, they can't prove the main case. So the government, I think, took that out strategically.
Okay, so at this point, say that the jury comes back, we're deadlocked. What happens then?
Well, so I think eventually the judge is just going to declare a mistrial on that 1 count and take the verdict on the 4 counts they've reached a verdict on. So there'll be a guilty or a not guilty either way on those 4 counts. Those 4 counts will be done. Trial over. On the count that there's a mistrial, the government then has to decide if they're going to retry that case.
Do you think do normally cases like this big, do they retry? I mean,
That's
a lot of money.
They could. They have the right to. It depends on what the verdicts are on the other 4 counts, in my view. If if they get 4 guilties, and then the sentence could be high enough that they say that's enough.
Oh, I understand. Okay,
right.
So that will be very interesting to see what happens there.
Correct.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for your insight.
You bet.